More on this, I'm joined by Jonathan Greenblatt. He's the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League. He's also the author of the new book, It Could Happen Here, Why America is Tipping from Hate to the Unthinkable and How We Can Stop It. Jonathan, good morning to you. I was sadly last night when I was looking for you and saying, I want to talk to Jonathan this morning. We didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And in many cases, when an armed person goes into a synagogue or threatens members of a synagogue, as you and I have talked about over the last few years, it doesn't end well. This one ended more peacefully than most have. What was going through your mind, and what are you thinking now?
Well, first of all, I was certainly thinking about the 4 hostages, and I think all of us need to give praise this morning to the FBI and Texas law enforcement for the safe rescue of those individuals. ADL was on the ground in Colleyville with the families at the command center, and I have to tell you, they were terrified. It was a really frightening situation. And it was another example, Ali, as you're saying, as we've talked about before, about a Jewish place being targeted. You know, we are almost 7 years to the day that a kosher supermarket in Paris was targeted by an ISIS supporter. We've talked before about synagogues and kosher markets in the United States and Jewish communal offices. And again, there's a reason why the Jewish community is so vigilant, because anti-Semitism remains at a historic high. Because in the minds of extremists, Islamist extremists, right-wing extremists, you know, conspiracies about Jews and Zionism and whatnot factor very high, and the community this morning is indeed on edge.
You and I talked the other day about this normalization of this sort of behavior, and credit to all the people who brought this to an end. But there was a strange comment made by the FBI special agent in charge who said that the hostage taker was specifically focused on an issue, i.e. the release of this prisoner, that was not directly connected to the Jewish community, and then there was no immediate indication that the man was a part of any broader plan. But this is what you and I talked about. Whether or not this had anything to do with Jews, the Jewish community, he decided to go into a place that was a Jewish space where there would be Jews. And you and I discussed the fact that this is the problem, right? You don't want people randomly deciding that their grievances in life need to be taken out on Jews. That's actually the basis of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're raising the issue. I mean, I think the SAC and the FBI did such amazing work. But make no mistake, when this woman, you know, when a jury was being impaneled in 2010 in her case, and let's remind people, she was charged, she's serving 86 years, as you said, 7 counts of terrorism, including firing on American troops and taking surveillance photos of American institutions and threatening harm against Americans. In her jury selection, Afia Siddiqui said in public, Ali, that, quote, the jurors should be genetically tested so that we know there are no Israelis or Zionists among them. And then after her trial, when she was found guilty and the verdict was read in court, her exclamation that she said out loud in front of everyone was, quote, this isn't a verdict in America, it's a verdict in Israel. So this is bizarre. I can assure you that this synagogue in Colleyville, Texas, has nothing to do with some broad Jewish conspiracy. But in the mind of these extremists, right, in the mind of these anti-Semites, they always look to blame the Jews. And this man did not target a 7-Eleven. He didn't target a grocery store. He went to a synagogue for a reason, to make a point that Jews are vulnerable, that right, Jews are part of the problem. And this is why this vicious anti-Semitism needs to be confronted by all sectors of society.
It always troubles me in recent years when I drive by the local synagogue here and I see police. There are police particularly on Shabbat, but there are often police or security guards there all the time. What's the state right now this morning of the American Jewish community? I know you don't speak for everybody, but what have you been hearing from people you've spoken with?
Well, I've certainly heard from many Jewish leaders over the last 24 hours. They were breaking Shabbat to call and text and email, and people are afraid. What you said is true. I think you're going to see in the weeks ahead, Ali, an increased police presence at Shoals, more security precautions introduced, cameras and locks and things like that will certainly happen. And I also think the thing that's so interesting, and if we want to turn this crisis into an opportunity, this rabbi, this shul was very involved in interreligious outreach, particularly making between the Jewish and Muslim community. And all Muslims aren't guilty of this at all. There are plenty of condemnations online. But let's hope this is an opportunity for Jews and Muslims to come together. We have more in common than those things that divide us. people's politics shouldn't get in the way of coming together as human beings.
Jonathan, I want to ask you one other question. As we've seen in many of these cases, whether it's anti-Semitic violence or other extremist violence in the last few years, we find out that sometimes the perpetrator has nothing to do with the larger cause. This guy may have nothing to do with Siddiqui. But that's sort of a problem in America right now, where people take their messages either from the ether or from things that they read or from the internet and could be acting alone. That doesn't actually comfort us, right? The idea that it's not part of a broader conspiracy is still as dangerous to people who are taken hostages or killed.
Yes, I mean, he was likely getting his information from social media to a degree. We don't, again, know all the details, as you said. There is still so much of a proliferation of anti-Jewish hate online, anti-Zionism online, wild conspiracies. Look, we also know, though, in all honesty, Ali, that Siddiqui has been a cause celeb for some, on the far left, that she's being described as a prisoner of conscience. Again, even though she was firing on Americans and committed other crimes. So he may have been taking his information from some of those people. We really don't know yet. But if we want to try to figure out how do we move forward, I really hope Congress will approve the special global envoy on anti-Semitism. That nomination is being held up. I really hope law enforcement and local Jewish communities will continue to work together on security. And I really hope the Jewish and Muslim communities can find ways to come together, because, again, that's in all of our interest to keep ourselves and our communities safe.
Jonathan, I don't appreciate the reason why we have to talk this morning, but I always appreciate you coming on to help us with these difficult topics. Jonathan Greenblatt is the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League. We're going to have more on this developing story as it comes in.